The controlled demolition of the current financial system and restructure is happening right before our eyes. The current supremacy war is heating up. New tax policies, ending the Federal Reserve and the IRS as we know it. New banking system. How about the US dollar? Are we returning to a gold-backed currency, ultimately en route to a digital currency, a stable coin into an encrypted QFS? By reading the pages of this book and taking advantage of the opportunities within, you will become informed, empowered, and connected with the confidence to act. Saving America and protecting your wealth are not spectator sports. Will you be on the wrong side of history? It requires effort and due diligence, then action on your part. Action changes things. It's time. As we witness the greatest financial reset in history, prepare for a new era free from the shadow and control of the cabal. The future is bright, and it belongs to us, not the corrupt elite. We are mid-transitioning. We've not yet arrived. What's occurring during this transition? Danger. This is the danger zone on the economic and financial battlefield. There is tremendous opportunity to prosper. Strategies, models, and proposed solutions will be defined within the pages of this book. This is indeed a must-read book which should be shared with others. The Global Financial Reset, Surviving and Thriving the Transition. Pick up your copy today of this 5-star rated book at Amazon.com.
All right, welcome back. Wednesday, May 14th, 2026. This is the Global Financial Reset weekly broadcast, Surviving and Thriving the Transition. And joining me today in just a moment are returning guests, Captain Rob Cunningham and Jon Dowling. We got a great show lined up. Now, for those of us struggling to get by with little or no financial assets to protect or invest, the education in these weekly episodes is for you as well. Everyone will benefit from the knowledge of what is going on behind the scenes and somewhat not behind the scenes that can benefit and will benefit each and every one of us as President Trump and team sets the new financial system in place. So do continue to watch and join, whether you have assets to protect or not. And where we go one, we go all. Pardon me, folks. I've got some congestive issues. I'll get through the show. Joining us next week here on the GFR is Will Barney, Bill Armour, and Patriot Street Fighter Scott McKay is dropping by to say hello. All right. Juan O'Savin. Join Juan and his Chief of Staff, retired Lieutenant Colonel Matt Meck, at the Fraud Fighter Summit. Visit fraudfightersummit.us. If you're in the U.S., get on over to Las Vegas, June 15th through the 17th. Learn about it by visiting the site. Say hello to Juan O'Savin. Speaking of Juan O'Savin, May 28th. There it is. All right, Thursday, May 28th, 8 p.m. Eastern. Juan will be in our all-new Patriot Q&A private Zoom room live. I'll be your host. Juan will be the guest. And we are there for 1 solid hour live to answer your questions. To learn how to participate in this, visit jmcbroadcasting.com, click on Premium Portal, and learn all about that. If it's not for you, please sign up for our free subscription. All of our broadcasting is free. Okay, Juan O'Savin has stated we will be facing an economic extinction event and went on to say, and I quote, "And all these things we're going to have to fight in this reset of America. The war in the financial realm is going to be the greatest of them all." He went on to say we can expect to see 6 to 8 times more of a collapse in this bond meltdown than we did in the market collapse of 08 and 09. And Juan goes on to say, and that is a conservative number. All right, we'll be talking about solutions to this escalating crisis. And on that note, chaos without clarity, problems without solutions, steer clear from disruptive fear porn podcasters. Use discernment, choose wisely, do your own research, and be sure to listen to this broadcast to the very end today as I provide 5 specific action items and resources for you to assist you through the dangers that lie ahead and the opportunities that are right here, right now before us. So let's get right into it with my 2 guests. Before we begin, the information provided by me and my guests is for educational purposes only and is not to be considered as specific investment, tax, nor legal advice. You are encouraged to do your own research and consult your financial, legal, and tax professionals. Now, to help you with your tax, legal, and financial professionals, I strongly urge you to visit wealthcoachuniversity.com. Scroll down, you see a little blue tab, Advisor Scorecard. You'll be happy to check that out first. All right, having said all that, let's bring our guests on. Captain Rob Cunningham, KUWL, is a passion project launched in December 2022. Born from a spirit of curiosity, Rob's thirst for truth and disdain for false narratives, he questions, researches, analyzes, interviews, educates, and opines on many, many issues. KUWL is an acronym for knowledge, understanding, wisdom, and life experienced to the fullest. Rob's purpose is to leverage his experiences, insights, discernment, and vast network of remarkable friends to bring you as much value as possible. Rob's personal background includes a business degree in management information systems, United States Air Force active duty as an instructor pilot with combat experience and top secret security clearance, 2 years as a major airline pilot, and 20 years in investment and mortgage banking, with more than 20 years owning and supporting a national leadership and sales development company. And if he was a doctor, sure great to get a prescription from him at this time. Welcome back, Captain Rob Cunningham. Thank you, sir, for being here.
It's my pleasure, brother. Sorry that your congestion is bothering you, so I'll try to take as much load off of you as possible.
Thank you very much. And to our audience, I'm actually not sick. I sound it. I mean, I guess sick has to be redefined, or can be defined in many ways. But they burn. They do a crop burning season here in northern Thailand, and it's over. And I thought I escaped any ramifications of it, but at the end, it got me. So I'm working on it. I should be better in a week or so. But thank you, Rob, and our guest John coming on to help cover the basis. But folks, we got a lot of hot stuff going on right now. We're going to make sense of the madness. And first, I want to thank you, Rob, on behalf of all of our guests, our premium members that attended last month's Patriot Q&A hour, where you were the featured guest for the hour. We had a packed house. Lots of feedback came back to us, how much they thoroughly enjoyed it and how valuable it was. So on behalf of everyone who had attended that, I speak for them and thank you for that.
Thank you, Brad.
All right, let's move on. You bet. Thank you. So and we have a lot of new folks joining us on our platform, JMC Broadcasting, our social media distribution channels, and our website itself, and so forth. And so this may be new for some and a repeat for others, but very important. Talk with us about the documentary of which you are featured in, along with the legendary researcher, author, film producer, Mr. G. Edward Griffin, Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and many, many others. Set the stage for that. And I think we may have a trailer and a clip I'd like to run. And then we'll get into some of the issues of the day with China, the new currency, and everything else that's going on.
Sure. Happy to do so. I was blessed and honored to help Mr. G. Edward Griffin interview some of his panelists and experts that he has every year at Red Pill University. He is a huge advocate on education and training and local development in the community, getting people involved, understanding governance and politics and leadership in the local levels, and not just act like it's somebody else's responsibility. So he's been an educational advocate throughout his adult life. He's currently, I believe, 95 years old. He does a daily newsletter. He does a podcast all the time. He does annual seminars. And I was blessed to introduce him to some producers that I've come across in the last 6 years. They were creating a documentary called Money Disrupted. And it is a 2-hour journey over 250 years from 1776 to this year. But it focuses on how we lost control of governance. We outsourced the function of the Treasury to a non-governmental organization known as the Federal Reserve, whose parents are domiciled in the city of London, and they took over the manipulation of our monetary system. They perverted our equal weights and measures. They became a third party in what was supposed to be a mutual consent relationship. Money is a two-party yes or no system. It's a trust system, and it's an I owe you or you owe me. There's not supposed to be there's not supposed to be 3, 4, 5, or 8 people in the middle between every transaction. It's kind of like let your yeses be yes and your nos be no. And the highest form of moral law ever documented is mutual consent. So when we have hidden actors and hidden players that are inflating the currency supply, which is in essence theft, it debases our purchasing power, which is theft, and they do it behind the scenes without constitutional authority. It's really a crime against humanity. And Mr. Griffin has rightfully and accurately and brilliantly identified the Federal Reserve as a cartel. And that cartel is in perfect alignment with the executive orders that President Trump has issued about bringing cartels down. And it also happened to align with my long-held belief that President Trump came down the escalators of Trump Tower in 2015 with one mission, and that was to take the head off of the central bank. He was the proverbial David coming off the fields, and the central bank, the Federal Reserve, was Goliath, terrorizing the village known as America and the world because they had the world reserve currency, but they had no legitimacy. They had no governmental authority. They were a proxy pseudo agency that was not elected nor accountable to any sovereign nation. They were above law, but they controlled the world reserve currency. And so it's impossible to have a sovereign country if you don't have a monetary system that you can control and the people can hold those leaders of the system accountable. And that has been the Ponzi scheme that President Trump has endeavored with his life and his calling and his extraordinary skill set to rid from the face of the earth. And I believe the final death knell coffins for the world to understand just happened in the last 2 days in China. So the documentary helps people understand from 1913 to 2026, each and every decade, the malfeasance of the Federal Reserve, what they've done, how they've profited off of World War I and World War II and Korea and Vietnam, and why they were involved and motivated to assassinate President Kennedy. And they're taking us off of the gold standard in 1971. And all of the divide and conquer, profiteering off of conflict, can be traced back to the Federal Reserve and their handlers in the city of London by following the money. And ultimately, the good book tells us that dishonest weights and measures are an abomination. If they're lying about the money, which represents our labor, our talents, and our gifts, and our service to our fellow man, and they can control us and manipulate us with fraudulent measures and dishonest measures and weights, then they control the whole planet. And what we saw ultimately, I would just encourage everyone to go to fruitionproductions.com. I think you're going to show a clip of the movie, but if you don't, if it sounds boring, honest weights and measures, John, let me just put this in context. It's not just a monetary or a trade issue. It's not about the amount of gold or silver behind a dollar. Honest weights and measures is about every single aspect of humanity. It's about equal weights in justice, equal weights in science, equal weights and opportunities to do work, to live free, to speak freely. It's about what's a man and what's a woman. There's an equal weight and there's a truth to that answer, or there's a father of lies that's going to try to make us believe that there is no such thing as absolute truth. And I think we need to broaden our understanding of what honest weights and measures is 1 + 1 = 2. There's two genders. Math is math. And we need to deal with the consequences of what those truths are instead of constantly being in a state of blaming somebody else or our perpetual victim status. And this movie,
yes. Go ahead.
this movie, if I'd love you to show the clip, and I just want to encourage everyone, this movie ought to be in every single city office, city council, high school, college, Turning Point USA, Patriot grassroots movement. It ought to be in everyone's family. It ought to be in every church. 40% of the good book talks about the dangers of money, misuse of money, worshiping money, the narcissism that comes from thinking that money is going to make you cooler, better, powerful, closer to God because you have more money. People's misunderstanding of money is the root of all evil. And if the churches don't understand that and can't explain it and can't put that living, breathing truth in the context of how they serve their communities, then they're committing malpractice.
Thank you for that, your viewpoints, and elaborating on the weights and measures of what it represents beyond supporting the value of the dollar. I appreciate that very much. I took a few comments here. You said, define what's a man and what's a woman. Well, if you ask a Supreme Court justice what's a woman, you won't get an answer last time I checked. But anyway, we are going to talk about China. We're going to talk about Kevin Warsh, Powell, and a lot of other things that are ongoing and just happened this week. Before we get to that, I want to make a quick comment. G. Edward Griffin, as you mentioned a moment ago, to our viewers at jmcbroadcasting.com, you click on Library of Truth, and there's a bunch of tabs taking you to different subjects, right? Save the Children, economy, Robert David Steele videos. You can click on G. Edward Griffin. We're compiling, I don't know, maybe a half a dozen are there. We're still searching on the internet for more and more. So there's a library of all the work that Mr. G has done. When I remember back when he was a young guy, and like black and white videos, he was holding little seminars in people's houses, and all the way to The Creature from Jekyll Island, which you should pick up, folks. And there's a link to that at wealthcoachuniversity.com. You can just go to Amazon for that. Anyway, I do believe our producer has a clip. We're going to run this clip, and then we're going to bring on our next guest, Jon Dowling, and the three of us are going to have a panel discussion on the amazing things that are unfolding right now in this global financial reset. Run the clip.
You will find the heart of America here. The decline of American manufacturing jobs is a serious concern, as many companies choose to move their operations overseas.
How did this dramatic income inequality happen on such a wide scale?
I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets.
The U.S. came off the gold standard August 15th, 1971, when Nixon closed the gold window. Since then, we've had floating exchange rates with the rest of the world.
The majority of Americans don't make enough money to cover some of the basic costs of living.
Every day is a struggle for me, but I still have to worry about where my next meal is coming from.
Even eggs has gone up to $5 or $6 per dozen.
It all began in November of 1910. The Federal Reserve System was conceived. But all these years, we've had something which most people have thought was a government operation of some kind or another.
It's not. What is it? It's a cartel.
There's been massive money creation in the U.S.
When they create a lot of money, that devalues our buying power. And this has gone on to such an extent that 40% of all the money that's in existence in the US dollar was now created since the pandemic.
Here you go, guys. Let's play central bank, because it's even easier than what I'm showing you. Originally, when we were on a gold standard, gold and silver were actually the money.
The only way we get out of the rat race of inflation and endless money printing and debt slavery is to return to sound money principles.
Bitcoin's now 16 years old. It's never been hacked. It's an extraordinary invention.
This is just the beginning. A new era of financial freedom where individuals can control their own money.
As you know, I was a skeptic.
Yes!
I believe Bitcoin is legitimate.
I'm a believer in stablecoin, a believer in blockchain.
I think crypto trading is going to become the infrastructure layer behind real-world assets.
We have to go back to sound money. We have to get our balance sheet in order. We have to stop irresponsibly spending money.
There's so many innovative technologies coming in, cryptocurrency, AI technology. What we should be doing is studying how to become an investor in those types of markets and those assets.
When I was in Zimbabwe, it collapsed, and these young kids come up with their AK-47s, and it's about taking your money. So when this collapsed, law and order collapsed. It's coming to America.
The rising cost of food is driving an affordability crisis.
Crime on the rise.
The rise in crime.
We have a pandemic of lawlessness.
And the Fed.
And the Fed.
We want to end the Fed.
And the Fed, let's go.
And the Fed. And the Fed.
How about that Richard Nixon telling us in an address to the nation that he's going to be decoupling our currency from gold temporarily? That was back in the early 70s. Jon Dowling has been directly involved in the godly global currency reset since 2012. A patriot truther with over 2 years successfully interviewing the best within the financial and geopolitical sector within his podcast, ranging from the likes of Bill Halter, Andy Schechtman, Peter Schiff, S.G. Anon, Derek Johnson, David Mahoney, Nicholas Veneman, Major General Paul Valle, Lieutenant General Tom McInerney, and just to name a few. Jon has a business background with an associate's in business finance from Fairfield University, as well as a master's in music business management from Berklee College of Music. Furthermore, Jon's relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ has led him to this seminal point in history and his guiding post for life, relationship, finance, and all truth for a dire world in need of truth today. Anyway, please welcome back Jon Dowling. Thank you, sir, for being here.
It's a pleasure to be back. Thanks, John Michael, for having me. Good to see you, Brother Rob.
Good to see you as well, my friend.
So real quickly, Rob, back to the documentary, and thanks for providing the trailer. Where can people get see the trailer, and where can people access this documentary?
Thank you. Yes, it's fruitionproductions.com. They're working on their fourth movie now. The first one was about rigged from the start, about the SEC going after the most widely leveraged and adopted public blockchain on earth, the XRP ledger, plus the company that is doing a lot of advocacy work around the world, helping people understand blockchain, distributed ledger technology, stable coins, what XRPL is, and what the XRP token does when properly functioning through the monetary system. So the people that wanted to maintain status quo and did not want there to be disruption to the world reserve currency, or the private NGO cartel system, sent their goons out and tried to kneecap something they couldn't buy or control. And so we had the long SEC lawsuit against Ripple and the founder, Chris Larson, and the CEO, Brad Garlinghouse. So their first movie was Rigged from the Start, about that battle. The second one was Money Disrupted, which we just saw. They're working on a movie now about the Hunter Biden laptop and all the prosecution that is being thwarted and all the evidence that is available to all of us, yet still being, tamped down and hidden and, in the corrupt justice system, which is just as corrupt as the Federal Reserve System. So if you go to fruitionproductions.com, you'll see Money Disrupted right there. It's one of their 4 feature documentaries.
Thank you. And to validate your point, you can't get justice in a corrupt justice system. Thank goodness it's a military operation running side by side. We'll take care of business, and we have been, as you, of course, well know, Rob. Since we're with you, Rob, we'll start here, and then we'll go to Jon Dowling. I want to talk about a few things. Powell out, Kevin Warsh in. We do know that Kevin Warsh is central casting because President Trump put that in writing on Truth Social. And I've come across something. Is this actually the 17th Fed chair since the formation of the 70th? I mean, whew. Okay, so here's my question. No, unbelievable. Was Powell central? Is it your opinion? Was Jerome Powell central casting all along? In other words, being controlled and as part of the optics to expose the Fed and let him go down with the ship? I mean, I don't know. Was Powell central casting all along? We definitely have come to the conclusion that Kevin Warsh is. What's your view on that? And overall, what just happened to me is really going to prove to be history. This will be, in my opinion, the last Federal Reserve chairman we have as we know it. But what are your views of all this, sir?
Yeah, John, the net effect of what Powell has done far outweighs whether he was central casting, whether he was ordered to do this, or whether it was part of a plea deal and a plea bargain. The net was timing is everything. Okay. They had to draw attention to the Federal Reserve, its abuses, the fact that it thinks it's supra sovereign and is untouchable by the highest elected official in America. He had to keep rates exceptionally low so that people would, it's like bringing milk out on a driveway when it's 94 degrees outside and watch it curdle and everybody smells it and everybody complains about it. So by the time you get rid of the milk, it's like, thank God. I thought you'd never come and get rid of it. Well, Powell was that stink in the economy who was giving the middle finger to our president while interest rates are absurdly high and people can't afford to fill up their cars with gas and eat. So did he play the role that was necessary to set the conditions for a new Federal Reserve chairman to come in and do what's necessary? There's no doubt in my mind that what we're seeing happen, if we've been paying attention since late 2017 or 2018 about the military operation, it's mathematically and statistically impossible to think there's these millions of random coincidences are just happening in perfect alignment and in perfect sequencing, and it's central casting.
Yes, thank you. Before we go on to John, what's your quick comment about, now that this move has been made, how do you see things playing out from here on out concerning Fed policy as the extinction of the Federal Reserve as we know it is in progress? How do you see this change into Warsh playing out policy-wise, and how will that impact the people?
The Fed's going to just virtually disappear. It may stay around in name only or just be completely gone. We're going to have brand new currency minted and distributed by the United States Treasury, signed by the President of the United States, and there won't be the Federal Reserve note anywhere on the document. They're not going to be involved in buying it, QE10 or QE4 or quantitative tightening or quantitative. They're not involved in the equation anymore. We're going to have a natural sovereign treasury that issues its own money And the interoperability is what was on the table in China, John. What was sold and what was agreed to globally was interoperability. You have two men that represent 47% of the world's GDP in China, in Xi and Trump. We're going to be partners. We're not going to be in conflict. We're going to shake hands. I'm going to buy oil from you. Iran's not getting a nuclear weapon. Iran cannot keep the Strait of Hormuz closed. We are going to cooperate and work together. And when these two men, and then just throw in India, Russia, and Japan just for giggles, we've pretty much announced to the world that Federal Reserve, you're dismissed. Not only literally, Mr. Powell, see you later, but the new Federal Reserve Chairman and Judy Shelton, they completely understand we could cut interest rates 1 or 2% like that and not see inflation that hurt the American economy, because we're not going to overprint the supply of money, which is what creates inflation. Growth does not cause inflation, but the Federal Reserve has been lying to us about that for 80 years. Growth does not cause inflation. It's too much currency circulating in the economy that causes inflation, not growth. So we've got the right team in place.
It's very exciting. I've always said, I mean, keeping it simple, what are there, like 200 people on the board in the Fed or something? What do they really do? Raise and lower interest rates, increase or decrease the money supply, and almost always at the detriment of you and me, we the people, of course, funding both sides of every war and laughing all the way to the bank of which they are. Thank you, Rob. Thanks, Jon Dowling, for being here. Good to see you, sir. How would you like to weigh in on this pretty amazing moment this week with out goes Powell, in comes Warsh, and out goes the Federal Reserve ultimately itself?
Well, firstly, again, thank you, John Michael, for having me again for a reprise. Always a privilege to be here. So thank you for that. And good to see you, Brother Rob. I always enjoy our monthly dialogues on our podcast. Just to kind of piggyback off what Rob was saying, I think it's this whole thing was scripted and timed for maximum effect. There's no coincidences in the kingdom of heaven, as Rob knows. And so conversely, it's interesting that you have Warsh coming in Tuesday, officially announced yesterday. You have the Clarity Act passing a big hurdle through the Senate and probably going to complete tomorrow. And at the same time, you mentioned it, John Michael, you have the meeting with Xi and Trump. It's basically putting the world on notice that we're coming to the end of the CCP and establishing the Republic, and that BRICS is not going to have the foothold over the U.S. You have President Trump with the new Treasury note, or what he actually said was Federal Reserve victory note, victory over the Federal Reserve, bringing back the gold standard, tons of gold cons on the new note. But he's got to wake up the public to this. We in the truther movement are well aware of these things. We understand how these things intercorrelate, but the rest of the world is kind of waking up out of a slumber going, oh, wait a minute, this is why, this is why, this is why. What I'm really excited about as well, in addition to all these things, John Michael, is the timing of when he's going to announce this Iran quote unquote war, which is really just regime change, is going to be announced optically as dead. Will it be this weekend? Will it be early next week? We think on our team internally, it's going to be well before the somber day of Memorial Day coming up in about 10 days from now, give or take. What I was also excited to, you mentioned earlier, if there was anything that we should bring up, you want to bring to the table, I'm going to throw this into the mix. This is very interesting, gentlemen. Let me just pull my notes open here, if you don't mind for a second. We had today, in addition to all these things, Rob and John Michael, we also had the internal announcement that the Prime Minister, Ali al-Zaidi, is now the new official Prime Minister of Iraq. President Trump is sending officials as of Friday to congratulate him. 14 of the 15 cabinet members were picked today. What we need to now do is narrow down the corrupt Iranian proxies from Iran that are been basically strongholding their little brother Iraq inside of the green zone of parliament. We need to get them out to ensure that this will not be a corrupt RV and will be a true RV at the highest order, backed by gold, silver, diamonds, and all the other copious things we know that Iraq holds in clandestine fashion. So all these things are coming together in a very excited fashion. I would also like to give homage to credit where it's due. One of my mentors taught me years ago that the late, great Pastor George Robinson said, and again, we're not big on dates and rates on our channel, but this is a timestamp marker. So that's what we're kind of talking about, is timestamps events. running in sort of a domino effect or contiguous order. But the late, great Pastor George Robinson said the dinar would happen in June. Didn't say what year. Find it interesting now we're getting all this momentum coming now into next week, the second half of May, precipitating right into June. It's looking very exciting for all these things to finally come to fruition.
And thanks for bringing all that information in about Iraq and Iran's cabinets and so forth. We'll go with John since we're here, and we'll take it over to Rob. We touched on China. I want to delve into that a little bit more. President Trump, of course, over in my neck of the woods here. I'm in Asia. China's been affected clearly by the moves made in Venezuela and Iran concerning oil. Seems to me that President Trump has trapped the enemies of freedom, from the World Economic Forum to NATO, to the UN, to the EU, and to China. Just in the last few months, so much exposure has been done. Traps were laid and they ran right for it, just like the people getting a free donut for a vaccine. So break down for us, John, if you will, your analysis of what the meeting between Trump and Xi is all about. Any insights or comments you care to share with us on what's taking place as we speak with the president in China?
Well, simply put, as I alluded to a minute ago, it's the countries copy each other, right? So if you look at Iraq, going back to that, and I'll tie that into China, it says the Republic of Iraq. What is President Trump getting ready for? The 4th of July. Is he, and Rob and I have talked about this openly on our podcast, is he going to announce that the U.S. is now a republic and no longer obviously a democracy? We never were. We were always a constitutional republic, but that was wrested away by the cabal back from 1860, so on and so forth. Since the countries copy each other, is that same, we'll call it a placebo effect, is that same thing happening in China? We believe so, with the ending of the CCP and the optical introduction of the republic, where all these countries are going to be self-sustaining, as Rob always talks about, on an interoperable blockchain backed by precious metals, which we all stand for, God's money, constitutionally sound, over 5,000 years old, et cetera, et cetera. All these countries' currency is going to be able to finally stand on their own 2 feet. And as President Trump said back on, I believe it was March of 2017 or February, a level playing field, right? Backed by assets in the ground. So what you're seeing is China sort of tacitly waving the white flag and saying we're going to bend the knee, because as America goes, the rest of the world goes. So I think it's an exciting convergence of freedom, sovereignty, and prosperity, not just for one nation, but all the nations.
Thank you, John. You know, I've said it for many years back in the early days of American Media Periscope that I believe we'll see the fall of communism during our lifetime, and namely China, of course, being the big one. And it's also often been said by folks in our movement over the last 10 years that the notion that President Trump and Chairman Xi and Putin are working together in some capacity against the forces of evil. And I think from your commentary, John, that really has fed into that narrative, and I agree wholeheartedly. Rob, anything else you'd like to talk about concerning the recent events with China and Trump?
Well, yeah, I mean, I this is one of those almost beyond words and thoughts and beyond our own understanding to see how big this is, how much of a spell our nation and our world has been in, and how we're snapping out of it. But to put some context around this, remember we talked about the secretive politicians and bankers that scurried down on a train to Jekyll Island in 1910, and they represented anywhere from 15 to 25% of the world's wealth, and all of these banks and all of these nations that were there representing the design of this secretive cartel. Well, in public, not in secrecy, President Trump took what was 7 to 10% of the world's wealth with him on an airplane to sit at a table with Chairman Xi. And they said, architecture, new world order, better world, truthful, honest architecture where we all profit from abundance, we all profit from cooperation, we make money from prosperity and growth instead of conflict and war. With sovereign consent, every nation can volunteer to accept the interoperability of blockchain that's open and honest and transparent without giving up their national sovereignty. Every single nation can have its own sovereign currency. They can budget how they want. They can prioritize how they want. They can honor the cultures of the people that elected the leaders in their countries, however they so choose, and live in an interoperable world where there's honesty, transparency, accountability, and equal weights and measures that everyone the world over can honor and inspect with verifiable AI accounting, looking at the public ledger. There's nowhere for corruption to hide when there's perfect light on the ledger of truth that all nations can see. So if the darkness and the hidden hands and the money trafficking and the child trafficking and the drug trafficking and the war profiting, the profiteering from killing people or bioweapon research cannot be moved around the world, because the only way money can move is in the broad light of a transparent blockchain. Where does evil hide? There's nowhere for it to live. So I think President Trump obviously has been engineering this since before he came down the escalator in 2015. And to your point, John, Putin and Modi and Trump and Xi and Bolsonaro, this has been a global military operation. This isn't one orange man doing this. It would be utterly impossible for this whole global monetary system and architecture and this disconnecting of the Gordian knot that has been the world reserve currency system. You can't just blow it up in 3 weeks or 3 years and undo what they've been spending 150 years doing to us. But
Yes.
we have the man with the business savvy, the political savvy, the anointing, the bankruptcy experience, the leadership skills, and the chutzpah to lead the effort around the world to free humanity from this debt enslaving system that no one elected. And
don't forget the kahunas. He's got those too.
Yeah.
Rob, that was so well said, everything there, but particularly how the new systems will flush out the ability for evil to operate within the systems it's been operating in. That's not an over-the-night flick of the switch, but it's going to happen. And to our viewers, this is extraordinary. And everything we've discussed in the first 40 minutes of this show so far with our two guests is amazing news. It's like this, when you hear people say, what a great, amazing time to be alive, and this is biblical, those things are true. So, while there's a lot of bad stuff we're looking at, maybe some things have already happened and we're going to see it play out later. And one way or the other, the bottom line is this is all great news. Now I have a question, Rob, and we'll go to John after you comment on this. A lot of folks are asking me, like, okay, so we've heard President Trump way more than once, even at the State of the Union, say there's no need for income tax. Federal income tax, we're going to eliminate it. We've heard similar conversations from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. We've heard some amazing sound bites that Elon Musk just drops out there and walks away from, which I find fascinating. And all these narratives speak to, hey, we're going to get rid of the income tax. We don't need it anymore. So the question that people are asking me, and there are no dumb questions, it's an important question. So perhaps each of you can comment on it. How, if we eliminate the federal income tax and, no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, property tax, all of a sudden a whole lot of revenue is leaving the cities, the municipalities, and leaving the federal government. The question people are asking is, sounds too good to be true. How are we going to keep our towns, cities, and government afloat? What say you, Rob?
We've not a single penny or a single dollar of our tax money has ever gone to pay for a road, to pay for a police officer, or to pay for government services. When people will begin to understand that we have been lied to forever, don't take my word for it. Take the word of the president of El Salvador, who explained this beautifully to CPAC in 2024. The thing of the matter is, we think that our money is patriotism, and we're paying for the military, we're paying for the police officers, we're paying for the firemen, we're paying for public safety, when in fact, not a single penny goes to any of that. It all goes overseas to the City of London, the Rothschilds, and the founders of the monetary system. When people realize that the only reason we've had to do 1040s and pay income taxes is so that we have the illusion that we're participating in a government of which we don't participate. We have no standards. We have no agency, because they stole all of those rights away from us when they converted a republic into a corporation, and they disjointed our individual sovereignty and did their very best to destroy the Constitution and the constitutional republic, of which 3 days from now, on May 17th, we are going to have a day of repentance where we rededicate. Think about those words. We're going to rededicate through repentance our nation back to the God of the Declaration of Independence. Why would we need to rededicate and repent and turn back to God unless we somehow or another left, or somehow or another that was broken and severed? We've got to reconnect ourselves to what those 56 founders' signature represented on a piece of parchment on July 4th of 1776. So there was a hijacking and a destruction of the covenant contract between our founders and the nation that we're supposed to be. And in 3 days, we're going to reconnect that covenant.
The spiritual battle between good and evil and God and demonic forces makes all the sense in the world for that to occur on May 17th. It's very powerful and will shift the universe in a very, very big way. John, do you care to comment on the no income tax? How do we? Well, Rob, you raised the point. None of the money went to that anyway. But any additional comments or views you may have, John, on how we get things done without income tax?
Well, I do, and I want to compliment and piggyback off what Rob said and just add some touch points to your question.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, the public has been misled to believe a lot of things, canards that are not true, mostly by manipulation and fear that they have to pay taxes, they have to do this, they have to do that, or else they're going to go to jail, or there'll be consequences, fines, levies, all that stuff. You know, the Constitution says itself. None of that stuff is constitutional. We didn't sign up for any of it. It's all by consent. Fraud vitiates everything, as Q has said time and again. The reality of the matter is that President Trump in 2020, during what I call tongue-in-cheek COVID, basically restructured the Fed into the Treasury. Very quietly and surreptitiously did that. So that has already done. Now what he's doing is laying it out in a narrative that the public can accept slowly and gradually and methodically, because he is compassionate. With as fiery as he is, he's also compassionate, because he could have blown this up a long time ago and the repercussions would have been much greater than what they will be, because we're still going to have to deal with an imploding bond market, probably 10% next year and the rest in 2030, as one of your guests rightly pointed out. The other thing I want to compliment to what Rob said is that you can go, folks, and I know, John Michael, you encourage this, and we do as well. Go and research. Go on YouTube. Go back to 2000 and look up IRS income tax for individuals. A slew of IRS agents summarily left that organization, which is, by the way, a shell company at this point. There's nothing left of them. It's on life support, and they're going to announce the death of the so-called life of it here shortly, we believe, by the 4th. But a lot of IRS agents left because they could not find one single law in the IRS handbook anywhere that said that individuals have to pay taxes. They treat us like a corporation by putting us on an all caps name when you get your mail for utility bill or something of that nature. Everybody's familiar with that. Nobody really questions it, but they should. Why is my name in all caps? I'm not in all caps because they're treating you like a corporation right under your nose, which they never had the right or authority to do. And they get away with it when we contract with them, keyword con, right up front. So there is no law. There never has been a law. A gentleman put out a $50,000 cash prize reward to anyone who could find one singular law in the books that says that individuals have to pay taxes. To this point, not one has come forth. He's still waiting, and rightfully so. Another thing I would like to add, it's not directly germane to the subject, but it kind of is, John Michael, and that is Kevin Warsh tomorrow, when he officially gets appointed for optics. One of the things I'm really looking, and I'm sure Rob would agree, is for him to say are some key things like the end of suppression, the end of manipulation. President Trump is using him for central casting to do his bidding. What is Kevin Warsh there to do? To end the Fed. How's he going to do that? By lowering rates to zero, printing what they call quantitative easing, which is just cranking up the printing machine on the currency side, printing it into complete obfuscation and irrelevance, essentially. And then he phases in seamlessly as possible the new or the old asset-backed gold dollar. So you're going to see gold and silver back the currencies, the cryptos, the metals, certain bonds like Zimbabwe and many, many other elements. The underlayment will be metals. And of course, as Rob knows well, he's a steward on it, the blockchain. So that is something that I think Kevin Warsh is being used in the short term. I'm also going to be bold and say that this has been something I've been watching for a while, and you mentioned it, Rob, earlier. Excuse me, well, you probably did too, Rob, but John Michael, you mentioned earlier, and that is Judy Shelton. We're a big fan of hers. We believe fully at some point, President Trump brought her in his first term as a litmus test to see how Congress would take her, and it was almost 50-50 down the middle. Now with a decorrupted Congress and Senate vis-a-vis Nasara Jassara, you take a lot of these bums, take them out of work, take them off the company dole. They've been living off the stock market and cashing out for far too long, taking their cuts and going out the back door. Like Rob said, there's nowhere to hide anymore. The blockchain is very transparent and open. There's no mystery or opaqueness, right? So you cut down the fat and you just get essential workers under the new constitutional republic. What if she becomes the new Treasury chair and replaces Besant, or he gets put in another capacity somewhere and she runs it because she's been a gold bug for a long, long time. And now with a decorrupted leadership, we'll call it, brigade, whatever DC is going to look like, she goes in practically unopposed, and this thing can really flourish.
Boy, that Judy Shelton trajectory that you laid out sounds really, really good and quite probable. Good analysis. I want to pedal back, and we're going to get into the Clarity Act and new currency in a minute. You know, my own answer, let's say, to first off, what both Rob and John have stated here very clearly is most of the tax dollars, if not all of it, has not gone to the betterment of our society, as Rob laid out, but went to the halls of London and so forth and so on. So there is no loss there. Now, in addition to no loss, there's a gain. How about tariffs? How about $18 trillion of committed money in the United States from NGOs and from other countries and from American corporations to manufacture and do work here in our country? How about all the gold we've taken back from the underground cities of the Vatican, for example? How about the Saint Germain Trust? How about the birth certificate when they quantify that theft? Never mind all the income tax theft that both gentlemen have laid out, unconstitutional and illegal. So while we're not going to miss anything by not getting taxes. We never had any benefit from it anyway. We now have all this new benefit coming into perhaps a sovereign wealth fund to be distributed back to we the people. And I just want to say this without saying any names. A lot of people have been sending me comms and saying, hey, these individuals over here are saying you're all crazy on your show. There's no wealth coming back to anyone. Well, those individuals that are challenging us on that, I don't pick fight with that. I know who my enemy is, fighting the deep state. And we're bringing the truth out to the best of our ability. So for those entities, and you know you are, since you like to follow us, here's what I would suggest. Have that argument with my military, intelligence, and economic experts. Have that argument with Donald Trump, Scott Bessent, and Elon Musk, because that's where we're getting our content and narratives from. All right, having said that, we'll talk with John here for a moment. The Clarity Act. For those new coming aboard, and for just all of us, really, you bring some clarity to the Clarity Act. What is it, in a nutshell? Where is it at right now, and why is this so important? What will happen if and when this goes the right way?
Well, it's already a done deal. 99% of it, John Michael, is already done. At this point, it's a mere formality, and we believe, I'm sure Rob knows, most likely this will get buttoned up as early as tomorrow when Kevin Warsh comes in. No coincidence. In very simple parlance, the Clarity Act was a bill put together that was to create a complete set of transparency against the banking system and to help the retail sector, people like us investing in cryptos, XRP, XLM, et cetera, Shiba Inu, whatever you're into, to have a fair weight of measures and to remove fraud and corruption. And like Rob said earlier, there's going to be nowhere to hide in the blockchain because it's completely transparent and out in the open. And that's what they fear the most. But what this also highlights or underscores, we believe, John Michael, is Nassar Jassarin effect, because you're dealing with fraud, waste, and corruption, and arrests will certainly be forthcoming. It will not be limited to the Clintons and the Bushes on the geopolitical side, but it's going to be happening. I don't know if you saw this, but a couple of days ago, the mayor of Arcadia in California, Wang, who is a CCP deep stater, was just arrested for fraud and corruption in a very notorious state in which I used to live. So I'm very familiar with how corrupt California has always been. And that's being cleaned out very quietly from the inside out in all these different areas. So in essence, that's what the Clarity Act does. And that's why it's so important tomorrow. The initial bill, we believe, was very slanted towards the banks. But this whole thing is President Trump, like yesterday with China, putting his enemies out front so the world can see. Keep your friends close, your enemies closer, push them out to the front, see how they handle things. Same exact thing with the Clarity Act. And it's not going to be a perfect bill, but it's incrementally improved in this version compared to the previous version in terms of fairness for the retail investor.
Excellent. Thank you. Rob, any comments on the Clarity Act before I take us into some new territories?
Yeah, John, I think it's very important that people understand that the Clarity Act is, in essence, the constitution for the brand new monetary system. As it stands right now, there's no law. There is no body of law. That the two key words that are imperative people understand is this idea called board defensible. Corporate boards, CEOs, chairman of the boards, chief executive officers, chief legal officers, chief financial officers, they don't have any codified law to hang their hats on when deploying billions and trillions of dollars of shareholder value, public company wealth, public company assets. It's hard for them to, we all know that the Federal Reserve System is corrupt and its entire system of opacity, then these pipes and rails that are 50 years old are antiquated and out of date, and they can't operate in a quantum world. But there's no body of laws where they can say, here's our business plan, here's how we're going to move all of our capital. We're going to honor our fiduciary trust. We're going to know it's safe. We're going to know it's lawful because, oh, wait a minute, there's no law to point to. There's no law on the books. So until we have clarity signed into law, you can't have the Fortune 10, 50, 100, 500, 2,000 companies in the world's largest economy. It's like the Kentucky Derby. They have to open the gates to let the horses run. Clarity Act, once signed, allows the gates to open, and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars of wealth are going to be able to transition like they're leaving Blockbuster and they're going to buy Netflix subscriptions. But right now, the entire world is stuck in blockbuster purgatory, and they don't have the legal right to even buy a subscription to Netflix until this Clarity Act gets signed into law. I hope I painted a picture where people can understand how significant, there has to be laws that go with interoperability so that as the world can look for 4 years when XRPL and Ripple was, being attacked by the weaponization of the federal government and XRP was delisted, every country outside the United States they didn't give two damns about our lawsuit. They were building and constructing and connecting and wiring together the new infrastructure the world over. And Ripple grew like the fastest growing fintech company in the world outside the United States. But we were quarantined until they could win the lawsuit, get President Trump back in office, expose Gary Gensler, expose the Federal Reserve, and get rid of the Federal Reserve.
Wow. Incredible. Kentucky Derby, and they're off. Let's get this going, guys. Another piece of great information to our viewers. I mean, it's the three stellar, incredible events occurring or having occurred as of very recent and midstream that are all incredible news for our immediate future and certainly long-term future. So let's talk about cryptos. I'm not an expert in crypto. I've learned from my guests, such as yourselves and Will Barney and others, that there are perhaps 9 maybe ISO compliant cryptocurrencies and so forth. I understand a little bit about the purpose of XRP and XLM. Where are these at right now? Any comments? We'll start with Rob. We'll go to John on XRP, XLM. Anything in the crypto space you feel it's important to bring to the attention of the viewers right now?
Sure.
And Bitcoin.
Sure. I would say, I would ask people, I would just implore people to almost forget the word crypto. Go back and just start thinking about digital assets. I want you to think about what a ledger is, what a token is, what a stable coin is, what a utility token is, what a smart contract is. We've used this word crypto for 10 plus years. We've seen the media wars. We've seen the Bitcoin bros and the maxis of all different stripes, tribal warfare, fighting and screaming over whose meme token and whose crypto is better than whose. The CEO of the largest blockchain infrastructure company on earth is Brad Garlinghouse, and he has said there will be far less than 1% of these projects that remain when all is said and done. Wow. Less than 1%. So let me explain it to you this way. What the XRP ledger is think of QuickBooks. It is one massive modern day QuickBooks for the world. It's free for anyone in the world to use it, to move value across it, to ledger to the QuickBooks of the world, the interoperable QuickBooks. That is the ledger. The XRP ledger is not owned by America. It's not owned by Ripple. It's not owned by the Treasury. It's not owned by a BlackRock. It's held in public trust, and it's a public open source ledger that anyone can use, and no one can be denied access to it as long as they just adopt the protocols that are necessary to operate on the ledger. So think of it as like air. We all get to breathe. Okay. Now the XRP token is a totally different thing. It's a patented technology engineered to provide utility and function based on the reality of this ledger called the XRP ledger. So 2 different things. You have a public ledger, you have a patented, highly unique utility token And John, that is the interoperative motor oil that is going to allow 195 plus nations around the world and thousands and tens of hundreds of thousands of companies to issue stable coins and interoperate and trade sky miles for haircuts, or Japanese yen for German marks, or American dollars for real estate, or futures or commodities or derivatives, all across this public ledger, and settle the transactions in 3 to 5 seconds at pennies on the dollar. And we're talking, John, not millions and not billions and not trillions and not even quadrillions. We're talking ultimately quintillions of value of all different kinds that are going to be tokenized and then able to go and travel across this open ledger. What the XRP token does is, with total neutrality, do the mathematics that are necessary to check identity, check compliance, check the status of the asset, check the wallet, swap the assets, ledger the transaction on the blockchain, and it's done, final, settled, custody, over. All of that happens in 3 to 5 seconds. That's what the promise of an open ledger, sovereign nations, sovereign companies, sovereign individuals that have a wallet or a treasury or a corporate account that wants to interact and buy semiconductors or oil or derivatives or options or soybeans, whatever they want to buy. We can all interoperate, just like we're sending text messages to anybody in the world or sending an email to anybody in the world. Point to point, person to person, entity to entity, wallet to wallet, over a public interoperable methodology of value exchange that does not require any of us to surrender our sovereignty just because we're operating in a fair, open, transparent, and accountable ledgering system. So when people understand that is what is about to become front and center the world over, there will be no hidden hands. There'll be no place to hide the drug trafficking, the child trafficking, the military profits, all of the stolen wealth and squandered wealth and all of that, all these entities that feed off the friction and the 9 players between a payment, and you swipe the credit card and you get a fee and a charge and a debit, and then it's got to leave this country and make 6 hops until it gets to the Philippines or till it gets to Taiwan or Guam. And next thing you know, you're trying to send grandma $100 and she gets 82. Where did the $18 go?
It took a week.
And it took a week. Where did the $18 go? Every single time value is exchanged between individuals the world over, the system that has been built has been eating away at just us trying to transfer our own my sovereign value with your sovereign value. Who gives someone the right to take 3 to 8% of every single time money is moved? They get to extract 3 to 8%? Not anymore. Not anymore.
Extraordinary. You've done a great job at explaining that to all of us. Thank you very much. Reminds me of the late Robert David Steele. While he didn't go into the granular detail that you have, he spoke very much about open source intelligence and these sorts of things, how important it was 10 years ago, 7 years ago, and now this day is dawning. John, any contributions on the again, I don't want to use the word crypto now, but on the term. And by the way, I'm going to go back to what you stated. You broke down about 6 or 8 terms, Rob. I'm going to document them later and get them written and defined and focused on for myself and for the public. That was so well said. John, yes, go ahead, Rob.
To that point, let me just throw this in. If you'll look at the language of look at the memes and a lot of the documents that are floating around, crypto Twitter is exploding because of the passage of the Clarity Act. But part of the Clarity Act is public education, bringing people up to speed. They have to invest in teaching people, what do the terms mean? What do the definitions mean? How does this all work? So that we're not destroyed by our lack of knowledge. People have got to be able to get up to speed. Crazies like me have been studying this stuff for 6, 8, 10 years. Okay. But the average person just thinks it's the mark of the beast and I don't want to know anything about it. Or
Right,
it's just
that's a
all
true
the way
statement.
the CBDCs and I ain't touching that digital stuff because it'll kill you. No, it won't. It won't kill you any more than a flashlight will kill you. I mean, the flashlight serves a purpose. If I conk you on the head with it, I might hurt you, but I'm breaking the law if I conk you on the head with the flashlight. That light beam that trades data back and forth isn't any more the mark of the beast than those glasses on your face, John. It's just a tool.
I remember, Rob, I don't remember, 20, 30 years ago, whatever it was, AOL came out, the whole internet was, kind of, well, Al Gore took credit for it, but kind of being born. And I always remember back then I'd say, what? I mean, people will shop online and put their credit card there and I said, I'm never going to do that. I remember being one of those guys. And of course, my entire life and world runs that way. To your point that welcome the new, it'll be better. Now we're going to have conversations down the line about the pros and cons of this, about AI, and certainly now with off-world issues that the president is bringing finally to the surface since Eisenhower for all of us. These are for different programs. But thank you, Rob, for really doing a great job in putting this into perspective for us at a high level, but at a way we can all understand. John, I'd like you to weigh in on cryptos, and also if you can provide a directory or a place that people can explore these things a little bit further as a value to the audience as well.
Well, I mean, Rob laid it out really beautifully. As you said, sort of the structural genesis of the whole blockchain process. So I don't have a whole lot to add as far as that, but I would just, my personal and our team's personal ethos is the key is becoming your own central bank. We have been talking about being enslaved by central banks. Now, for the first time in history, we will be able to become our own central bank. People say, well, what does that mean and how do we do that? Well, Rob talked about peer-to-peer, direct. I call it Venmo without the middleman. That's the easiest way to look at it for the average person. But in parlance, John Michael, you get involved in decentralized assets like XRP, things outside of their system they can't control, having a hardware wallet. I personally use Descent. I like them. I've had good success with them. Haven't had any hacking or encryption issues. So I would encourage people to look into the Descent wallet, how it operates. It's got a wide berth of rainbow platforms for all the different assets out there, tokenized assets, I might add. Things like XRP, XLM, XTC, gold, silver, copper. That's what's backing it with utility and real-time transactions, like Rob said. Quant, Shiba Inu. Shiba is a great example because Ethereum has ruled the roost with a monopoly to this point. You've had to get a lot of tokens from them and their subset of directory. You have to pay, like Rob was saying, essentially whatever the rate would be, 2-3% gas fees, which is them just charging you because they can. You have to go through them and they were controlling the monopoly on it. Now, getting into your own decentralized world, you're not relying on them. So Shiba is going to eventually at some point create the Shibaverse 2.0. Will have its own subset of blockchain assets that you can get from them away from somebody like Ethereum. Now, that's not to say Ethereum's not going to thrive wildly. They will, because Kevin Warsh is massively a proponent of Ethereum. He has a lot of it. The point is, these are techniques and ways in which you can become your own central bank, get out of their system, and as your promo talked about, control those financial flows in your favor instead of always being at a disadvantage. I would like to bring up one seminal point. It's not directly related to this, but it's important. This goes back to what you talked about, John Michael, with taxation. Another misconception people have is about debt. Now, I know a lot of people, they have credit card, they have student loans, they have car payments, medical issues. Those are very real things. I'm not discounting that. I've certainly had some of those in my past, so I can appreciate and empathize with people on that. But debt itself is usury and it's artificial. And the real debt, I've actually had Bill Holter. I've had Lynette Zhang. You had her on your promo. She's been a great contributor to our podcast in the past. We've had some really nice deep dive discussions on these subjects. And both she and Bill concurrently believe that the real rate of debt in the world, mostly in America, is 320 trillion, not 39 trillion. But here's the good news, John Michael. 90+% of that is not consumer debt. That's deep state debt. So President Trump, by bringing in this new system, tokenizes, brings God's money back to the people in a variety of mechanisms we've already discussed. But he also basically sticks that invoice, that debt, back onto the deep state for all the printing, pedophilia, the trafficking, the money laundering, the Doge malfeasance, the corporate malfeasance, the misappropriation. You go on and on and on. The list goes on. We've been screwed 6 ways to Sunday so much we don't know the difference anymore. But President Trump does. They've got all this stuff in the computer. They've got it all categorized. The OFAC list, here's a great resource, John Michael, the Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC list, the Treasury cops that basically crack down and bust the, as you say, cojones of every single nation in the world in alphabetical order. There's more Muhammads there than you can shake a stick at. But all these people, you don't know their names, but you know who they've contributed to. They've contributed to the Bushes, the Clintons, the Obama/Sorteros, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds. They're replete with corruption. So we're not only getting this unbelievable Ephesians 3:20 wealth, but we're also getting the purchasing power, because we believe, and I say we, our team, believe that some point this summer, as we come out of this and we be restored to the republic that we should rightfully have always been, there is going to be a stock market and a housing correction. And that's going to allow us to have, again, the wealth and the purchasing power. So we're not going to be upside down having this wealth, having to spend or overspend exorbitant amounts, because we won't have central banks lading interest and penalties and closing costs and all this other self-approved nonsense that should have never been. You know, you can get back to having God and having the man as the leader of the house and the family and having a single one-person income living off of that. And housing prices will roll back to where they were decades ago, so that we're really right-sizing and correcting all of these atrocities and injustices, as Rob pointed out, are just pure and simple abominations.
Wow, you unpacked a lot there, and I've taken some notes. I want to chip away at it, and then we'll wind our broadcast down. I thank you, gentlemen, for your time. You talked about the wallet. Okay, so what if somebody goes to a platform like, say, Uphold or something of the sort, and they purchase, say, XRP, and they've got some XRP, and they're issued a, I don't know what they call it, a code, you know, the key numbers, right? Do they actually have sole control under that mechanism? Can another entity get in there and restrict the access or play with the money, if you will, the tokens? Is that system adequate, or is an external wallet, you mentioned Decent or Decent or something, clarify all this for us if you can. Does that get it? Just because you get a code from an Uphold type, are you protected, or do you need to take additional steps?
I'll let Rob answer that, and then I'll feedback off of him.
Okay.
Well, John, what we're talking about is cryptography and responsibility of securing. It's almost like securing the keys to your house. You leave the keys out, somebody walks up, picks up your keys, and they can go in your house. Or there's advanced cryptography that requires some type of biometric, an iris scan, you know, a fingerprint, some type of physical metal card that has to be in the same proximity of your iPhone or your Google phone, so that they have to make a connection before anything can be authorized. So, for instance, let's say you have a metal card. I use called Tangem. And if somebody were to steal my phone and try to make a transaction of my crypto to their wallet, they didn't have my metal wallet, they couldn't do it. It just simply won't work. So the idea is, you know, the old school guys say, not your keys, not your wallet. The alternative to that is, let's say you put all of your money at Coinbase and everybody all the money gets piled in, just like we've done with the Federal Reserve System. All the assets are held, you know, in common pool, and you get a little portal and it shows a ledger and it shows how much money you have, but all the money is collated together. It's not individually custodied in your name. It's just, that's why if you go to the bank and you say, I want to withdraw $10,000, they're going to, they're not going to give it to you. They're going to ask you 20 questions. And if you won't leave, they'll call the police on you, even though it's your money, right? Because they don't have it. They put all the money in general population, so to speak, and then let you see a little window that says, yep, here's your money. It shows it right there on the screen, when in reality, it ain't anywhere for you and I to go and get it. They might have 3% of the money of their customers. And if 15 or 20% of the people try to go and get their money out of the bank, that's called a bank run, and they go out of business. And so
that's right.
The point of the matter is the brand new custodian laws, the collateralization laws, the transparency laws, and all of these laws that are embedded deeply in the clarity and market structure. People need to understand the Clarity Act. It's called the Digital Market Structure and Clarity Act. The House called it clarity. The Senate called it market structure. They're going to pass it, send it back with their changes to the House, who will have to all pass it one more time to then put it on President Trump's desk. That will probably happen in June, I'm going to guess. When it's all said and done and the signature gets on the document, I have no doubt in my mind this is all going to happen before the 4th of July. They could do it. They could do it next week if they wanted to, but I don't know what the precise timing of when they need to have this done is. They have a plan. I just haven't read it. I just get to guess at it like everybody else. So.
Sure.
Go ahead, John.
No. Go ahead, John.
Michael, I'm sorry. No, I was just going to again, thank you, Rob, for breaking that down. Yeah. So with dissent, for instance, going back to that, you have a 12-word encryption. 12 words that only the computer puts together that you would know.
A seed phrase. Yeah.
Or a seed phrase. Yeah, thank you. And it has fingerprint encryption, to Rob's earlier point. So it's like if you have an email, John Michael, that says, do you want to do a 2-step verification? It's essentially that, which decreases the hackability likelihood, but you have to obviously store those passwords somewhere safe. I use what's called a Faraday bag, which is great for in the event of an EMP, electronic pulse attack, basically a cyber attack. You put it in a safe somewhere, and it houses both the wallet and the phrases, if you choose to put it there or somewhere else, away from public's line of sight. So these are simple, quick measures that you can do, which, while not 100%, dramatically decrease the likelihood of any hackability.
And John, let me add a little context to that as well. What John's saying, which is all perfect, but let's go back to 1800s. Okay, we had gold and silver. Somebody walked in your house and stole your silver and gold and wrote it down the street. How do you know? They can spend it. It's their money. I mean, they stole it from you, but you didn't have a crypto wallet and you didn't have a bank. And where are you going to put it? So the risk of someone stealing your property, although it's digital today, it's always been with us and it will always be with us. So with decentralized wallets and decentralized assets comes decentralized responsibility. I mean, our only other option is just cross our fingers and trust Chase Manhattan and Bank of America. They wouldn't do anything to screw me, would they? So the fact of the matter, there is risk in the world, whether you put your money under your mattress, your gold in a safe in your house, money on a digital wallet, and you have a crypto keys that you don't safeguard and somebody steals your keys. If you're careless and someone steals from you, it doesn't matter if it's 1600, 1700, 1800, or 2026. If you're careless and somebody steals your stuff, we have to be cautious to not let that happen. It's not the technology's fault. It's our responsibility, right?
Yep. Great points. So we can become our own central bank and our wallet, and probably be wise to lock the door and put the key in a safe place to keep it simple. John, you mentioned, or maybe Rob, I'm losing track, but I'm sure the group agrees, 90%, let's say, give or take, of the debt, that 320,000 trillion versus 39 trillion, and I understand how one can get to that number, we'll go back. The way I look at it is like we're handing the nails back to the Federal Reserve as Trump presides over this bankruptcy and puts it right back on them and says that 90% of that 320 trillion is yours. Here are the nails. Nail your coffin. Bye bye. That's what's basically going to be happening. And I'll tell you what, folks, executive orders, as our good friend Derek Johnson has done such a great job educating the public on, executive orders 13818 and 13848, I believe it is. These executive orders are helping gather all this fraudulent, illegal debt legally through the executive orders and shuffling the money back where it belongs and the debt back where it belongs. So you have a lot of wrongs being righted, to make up some words, and a lot of moral fiber and structure coming back into the society. And most people don't even see it, feel it, and think that nothing's going on when this program lays out for everyone at a very high level, but with great simple analogies, that statement is not true. There's a lot going on, and most of it, if not all of it, is good news. And on that note, I'm usually not a skeptic. I'm more of a realist and more of a glass half full guy. But sometimes my realism will keep me in the middle of a glass somewhere. And that's where I am right now on this subject. And we'll close out our broadcast with this. July 4th is coming. And a lot of folks, including yourselves, perhaps feel that we'll have our new currency by then, and some of these other issues will be done. The IRS and the Fed will get their notice, their doors closed, and new currency. I'm glass even on that. I'm not sure that all of that unfolds that transparently, that officially, and that terminatedly on July 4th. Please prove me wrong. I'm not challenging you, gentlemen. I think all the pieces are there. And while I think a lot of it's already happened, in terms of getting the notice, getting the official notification, I don't see that happening July 4th. Tell me, am I right or wrong? I have cause to be a skeptic on that. I know the signs are there, but it's just, I don't know.
Who do you want
Anybody
to go
want
first?
to chime in?
John, I'll defer to
Okay.
you
Good.
first.
Rob, go ahead, guys. Go ahead. Take it away.
Okay. So I can understand why you're sort of in the middle there, and Rob has been a great contributor on our podcast for many, many months, and we appreciate him on so many levels. He and I have talked about this how many times have we talked about this, Rob? Time and time and time again. In order, there's a great divide in the country on innumerable things. But when I think of this, I think of the financial and the geopolitical. And while they're separate, they're conjoined. It's kind of hard to separate the two. They're sort of interoperably close cousins. What I mean by that is that a lot of people I just want the wealth, or I just want the arrests, I want the justice. You tend to hear one of the people respond typically in one of those two ways. Our belief and ethos has always been and remains, and I know Rob agrees because we've talked about this on our podcast many, many times, in order to have those arrests, in order to have the justice, in order to have monies coming back to the people, in order to have a fair and equitable system, it all starts, and this is sort of the backbone of our particular podcast that we've been doing for the past almost 3 years. What God has called us to do, as you mentioned in our opening, is to empower God's people on the godly global reset versus the great reset. You have to define the two. They're mutually exclusive. They're not the same. I don't see how we're going to have much to celebrate on the 4th unless these things happen. The finances have to be the backbone that allows everything else to proliferate or springboard, was what I was trying to say, off of things, or piggyback off the momentum. It starts with the finances. It dictates the flow of everything. The reset, what you're looking for, John Michael, the 4th of July, it isn't coming. It's already here. What we've been laying out in our thesis to you, both Rob and I, is all to underscore the point that it's happening in real time. That was the point of the China meeting with President Trump, right? Was to buy time to make these announcements. Again, it's not a coincidence that Kevin Warsh is been appointed and is now being sworn in tomorrow, that the Clarity Act is coming in the rear. It may ultimately get finalized pen to paper early June, like Rob said, but the optical elements of it are happening right in front of us. You're watching Iran get ready to optically step down. You're watching Iraq just appointed a new prime minister who President Trump picked and outright said there will be no corrupt proxies or militias allowed in this new governance, or there's no point to have a new governance. So you're seeing all these pieces proliferate right in front of you, all of which is to not suggest, but out and out say with transparency for the first time maybe ever, that it's not coming, it's already here, right? And it's just landing in front of you so you can see it. He has said, President Trump, time and time again, that we are going to have a celebration like none other in history, starting on the 4th of July, 2026, going all the way to 4th of July, 2027. I don't know about you, but that sounds a lot like Nasara Jasar to me. Leviticus 25, 9 to 12, the debt jubilee, the golden age, the reunification of families to their land and their clan. We just talked about a housing market crash. It's going to allow people to go back to their land, their clan for much less prices, much more fair market value for asset-backed economies. We're seeing people do a departure from the big cities to the smaller towns and smaller suburbs and country living again, which is what we were doing in essence as a nation when we were thriving many decades ago before all these atrocities unfolded, like Nixon and Kissinger taking us off the gold standard in the most recent context in the last 55 years. So I would submit to you, John Michael, that it's not a matter of waiting till the 4th of July. It's already happening in front of us. And these are all just formalities to get to that point.
Well said. Thank you very much. I'm going to close out and on that, follow up with on that subject line in a moment, because I always like to end the show on a very positive note, and that is a positive note. But before we do, you mentioned, each of you have mentioned, and John, you just did, stock and bond. Well, you know about the municipal bond mess. That's irrefutable, non-negotiable. We know that's a problem, and we know it's begun and it's coming. My question is that, and we had the statement I opened up this show with from our good friend Juan O'Savin, who knows a thing or two about global currencies and what's going on in that space. My question to John, then Rob, and then we'll wrap the broadcast up is, no one has a crystal ball, but Dow just hit 50,000. President keeps talking about nothing but robust economies, but yet we have a lot of narratives that say stock market's going to collapse, bond market's going to collapse, real estate is on its way down. Certainly the US dollar itself, which is a good thing because it's the Federal Reserve note. We have all of these things. My question is, are you in the camp that says they're all coming down? I guess that's the question. Are they all going to come down in your crystal ball? Stocks,
Yes.
bonds, real estate, US dollar.
Yes, because there's no way, and Rob and I, again, not to be repetitive, but Rob and I have talked about this many times on our podcast. When you're transitioning a system, President Trump is going to do it as seamlessly as possible, but it's not going to be perfect. There's going to be bumps in the road because unfortunately, the lion's share of the public has no idea this is coming. Only about 1 to maybe 2%, if I'm generous about it, know about the currencies, know about cryptos, bonds, metals. Why are people waiting to buy gold and silver when it goes up in a reactionary mode instead of a proactive mode? That in and of itself shows you the flawed premise mindset that was, calculatedly done by the deep state to keep the people down. And I always challenge banks and say, if gold and silver isn't worth anything, why do you guys want it so badly? Every time you buy an ounce of silver, it shorts the banks $1 billion in their balance sheets. It's crushing them every single day under the weight of their own subjugation is coming back onto them. It's geoengineered. So that's not so much about hopium, that's reality. So I say this to answer your question with some contextual facts. So I'm here right now in South Florida with family for Mother's Day, and shout out to all the great moms out there, including you, Sandy. I've already wished you a happy Mother's Day, but we'll do it again for posterity. Great lady you have on your team, John Michael, as you know. So while I was here, one of my subscribers is in the real estate industry under the condo side of things, which is, as you know, very prevalent here in South Florida. And he works a lot in Fort Myers. Unbeknownst to me, he was telling me this week that Fort Myers is ultimately the epicenter for real estate, and how it goes dictates the rest of the nation. And for a while, Fort Myers was thriving. Now they're down to these buildings at 25-30% occupancy. They're giving away 2 to 3 months of rent to people. They're desperate just to try to hold on and claw to what they have. But jobs are imploding in real estate. There was an article I'm trying to find in front of me. The buyers to sellers is upside down by 630,000. That's the highest rate in history. So you just mentioned it, John Michael. It's a good point. We have a friend, Mr. B, who's coming on our podcast. Our audience always looks forward to him. I've known Mr. B for over 30 years. We've been good friends. He is a avid executive at Charles Schwab, is the only thing I can say. And he understands the Keynesian economic system, the old dead system, the Fed system. And he's been a contrarian betting against it because he's sort of the Michael Burry of that world, if that makes sense. And he has told me for a long time, the last 2-3 years, he's shown me statistical analysis, chart flows, data points that all point to the fact that when the Dow hits between 50 and 60,000, and it's itching right now, and also don't sleep, John Michael and Rob, on the S&P. He believed initially that the S&P's load tolerance was 7,000. He adjusted his numbers up to 8,000 to 8,500. We're over, let me take a look right now, as of the end of business today, the S&P is very close to 7,500, 7,482 to be precise, those keeping track. So that dictates how corporate America is doing, which is to say, not well. So, you know, in a crystal ball, as you said, we would see that post 4th of July, sometime August, maybe they can bump it out to September. You're going to see a massive stock market and housing correction, 80 to 90%. But that's why you want to be positioned to be your own central bank, because then you're not worried about it. You're out of their system. You're not tethered to them. And then you can help your family build a legacy and build a community internally wherever you live. And as Rob knows, Numbers talks about a good man leaves an inheritance to his children and his children's 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 children. This is all about building a legacy for yourself, for your family, for the kingdom of God, for your community. This is the best time in history for you to be proactive, taking action, changing your mindset, sowing where you prosper, not just within the four confined walls of your church, but in your community. You can really do a world of difference, and we can really take it to the deep state, one person at a time. The collective is bigger than the minority they assuaged us to believe that they had control of the whole time.
Thank you, John. Excellent. And, you know, you gentlemen are in great company with a lot of other folks that echo the same sentiments about these corrections. And so stocks, bonds, real estate, Federal Reserve note, thank goodness for that. And at the same time, I know the answer, but let's get it on the record. What happens to gold and silver during this period of time, John?
Well, great question. I'm glad you asked. And as you know, I'm an avid fan of it, as well as obviously Rob is too. He's all about constitutional God's money, so that goes without saying for him. The U.S. debt clock, which actually is an independent organization pulling from real governmental data statistics, not the fluff they put out to us, is already shown that it's going to be $1,200 before the end of this year. Lynette Zhang believes 2,000. Bill Holter says 6,250. President Trump is just going to let gold and silver run now from this point forward. And I believe he's going to, by December of this year, gold will be 20,000. Next year, it'll be 40,000. And silver is probably, I believe silver in the next two, well, it's not just me, it's Michael Oliver, who's a very avid silver and gold aficionado, because we all know there's less silver than gold at governments. It's the father of manufacturing, AI, robotics, the blockchain that Rob knows so well. It's the huge dictator of that. Vietnam has tons of silver. They never talk about, we've talked about that, John Michael, in the past. And I say that to say that I think silver, because of that, its scarcity and its importance in the world and that we live every single day, is going to be the more important driver. I would see silver probably within 2 years approaching $10,000.
Incredible, incredible. Well, thank you for that analysis. And again, to our viewers, While there's danger ahead, Juan's warned us, the gentleman on the screen has alluded to the fact that there will be some necessary collapses and corrections in a system that is completely corrupt. Let it burn. Let it crash and burn, and bring in the new system, folks, and be on the right side of that. Any closing comments, Rob, on the subjects that John and I just chatting about?
Yeah. I want to leave this with hope, and I don't want there to be as much. There's a lot of purveyors of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And people love to weaponize fear and scare people into the inability to discern and think clearly and calmly and rationally and think, oh my God, the world's going to catch on fire. We're all doomed. Okay. Let me put some context. There's two variables that are at play here right now. One is an extremely corrupt accounting system, the Federal Reserve System. It's opaque in design because it's designed to extract wealth unlawfully and steal, not be additive, but to be extractive. So that system is corrupt in its accounting measures. Secondly, there's a collateral issue. So you have the protocol and the accounting system, and then you have the quality or lack thereof of the collateral. Okay? If the false, phony Federal Reserve debt fiat Ponzi scheme paper goes away, and we know it's not worth the ink that's put on the paper, that's one aspect of it. But the designers and the military operation that have gotten us to this point, that took 10% of the world's population to China, that agreed to leave the old to go to the new open, transparent, sound money system with sound ledgers and an honest accounting system, they have to know they're going to swap out the old fiat paper crap with sound money. President Trump showed us. He's putting it out on Truth. He's putting out the victory notes. We're going to have victory notes that are going to be backed by sound money. So in the old world we've lived in a world where there's been about 3% physical currency and 97% digital. On the screen, Venmo, Cash App, direct deposit, ACH, FedWire. 97% of the world's money is accounted for digitally and 3% is physical. It's going to be about that same ratio when we move to this new monetary system. So the question that Juan Savin and everyone has to ask themselves is, oh my gosh, the new guys that saved humanity from dying, that took out the old system and put the new one in, by God, they didn't know they needed new sound money to swap out over a weekend or one-to-one replace the fake dollars with sound money while people are watching football games or playing soccer. It would be almost silly on our part to assume they've got all of this right. They've taken over this demonic evil, this world reserve currency system for 100 years. They're putting in a new accounting system. They're taking down the old infrastructure. And by God, they forgot to add new collateral that was sound and real. They didn't do that. So why does that matter? Because a company like Tesla or a company like Starlink or a company like Ford or a company like Apple, or a company that creates a great product is not going to just be selling for 2 pennies on the dollar because they're switching over the systems. That would create chaos, anarchy, and very possibly World War III, which is the very thing we've been trying to avoid since President Trump came down the escalator. So please understand that if there is a plan to get us to where we are right now, they know they have to take out the stale, old, worthless coffee beans and put in fresh, new, tasty, healthy, good coffee beans in the system because the world needs coffee. We're not going to all have to go on a 6-month bender where nobody gets to have any coffee. And anybody that drinks coffee is not going to be living with a headache for 6 months because they can't get coffee. Well, they're going to have sound money replacing the fake money. How they do it, technically, do a blood transfusion over the weekend. And if they've tracked everything, John, and they know what's sound money and what's not sound money and what needs to be swapped out one for one, they put the sound money in place and they jam the fake artificial fiat script that's issued by the Federal Reserve down their throat without Tesla losing 90% of its value or Ford losing 90% of its value. I think that makes more common sense than us just saying, resigning ourselves to thinking we're going to have a bond market crash that's 600 times worse than the last bond market crash, and there's just nothing we can do about it. I don't buy that.
Well, I would agree. This plan has been well thought out. It's precision, military and intelligence planning, and economic, of course. And and there'll be some hiccups, but I agree with you. The
There
world
will
won't go.
be some, yes. Yes, there'll be some hiccups. It's almost like re-entry from outer space into the new. You're going to go through the barrier and come back into a new. There's going to be some heat and there's going to be some friction and some shaking, and then all of a sudden we're through the right. We're whatever. We are going to transition,
Sure.
but I don't think there's going to be epic catastrophe on the scale of a crime against humanity, and everybody's going to be eating bugs until we can recover from a bond market annihilation. I don't think they've engineered that allow that to happen. Now,
All right. Well, this has been. Yes, go ahead.
there is going to be, John, there is going to be a bond market collapse, but it's the false bond market collapse created by the false creators, and they are going to suffer royally, and it is going to be dismal for these people that have created this counterfeit system, but 98% of us aren't in it. 95% of us aren't in that. We weren't profiting. We weren't extracting. We weren't weaponizing it. We weren't killing people over it. And when that system collapsed, it's going to be dismal for them, but that's called karma. Finally, they're going to get it to have their own medicine fed down their throat. But I don't think it's going to be the contagion that so many influencers want us as normal people to be frightful about.
Understood. I agree completely. To keep it simple, there's two sides to the coin, is yin and yang. And to John Lennon, instant karma is going to get you, Fed, and the rest of you guys, because it's coming and it's going to come down like the hammer of justice, very, very hard. This has been three words come to my mind: educational, informative, and greatly inspirational broadcast. Thanks to the knowledge of each of you gentlemen and your ability to communicate some very complicated things in new territory for us and bring it home for each and every one of us to grasp. And I greatly appreciate that. And we've got May 17th, days away. We've got that period of time till July 4th. And each of you have done such a great job, and so have other guests I've had on connecting the dots that all things do lead to July 4th. Even though I called myself half, I'm sitting there half full on the glass, half empty, half full, I don't know, because it just is a wait and see. So many of us have been, I think John mentioned it earlier, waiting for the arrests and waiting to get all my money and all of that. Well, let's hope there's not some great disappointment on July 4th. I know it's coming. And I hope and pray it's July 4th too. I realize most of the mechanics of everything, as you gentlemen have stated, have already been done. And it's just, as you mentioned, Rob, a matter of public consumption and making it a smooth situation. July 4th is coming. Let the horses out of the Kentucky Derby off to the races. And I'm very excited about it. And if it doesn't all happen on that day, it's coming, all of it, and it's coming soon, because I agree with you both. It's already done. It's just a matter of catching up with it in the space. And all the things that have happened just in the last week seem to be the nail of the coffin. And that March 26th press release from the Treasury Department, again, long issue, no federal and no reserve written anywhere in there talking about Treasury-backed sound money with President Trump's signature on it. It's a wonderful time. So I want to thank both of you. John, what's the best place for people to follow the podcast you've been referring to and to follow your work?
Well, thanks again for having me, John Michael. Always a pleasure, and good to see you again, Rob, brother. I'll see you again, of course, next month, God willing. People can follow us very simply in a couple of places. We're only in 4 places: on YouTube, my name and Chris Real World, Rumble under my name, BitChute under my name, and then our Telegram under Jon Dowling, Chris Real World, and where we put out a lot of articles every single day and try to put the pieces together for people so they can see how everything works in a contiguous fashion.
Thank you very much. And Captain Rob, best place is there a way for people to connect up with you, KUWL? How do people follow you and your work? And also the website again for that documentary, if you will.
Sure. Well, my website is kuwl.show. And if you could just remember those 8 characters, cool.show, then you'll be able to find all my other social media properties. I spend a vast portion of my time publishing and writing and sharing my research on X. And then the website for the movie Money Disrupted is fruitionproductions.com. And if you just forget that, if you don't write it down, if you can't remember that, just the 2 words Money Disrupted, just Google it, you'll find it. And if not, send me an email, go in and to my website, send me an email, and hopefully I'll get it, or send me a DM on X and I'll remind you. But the second biggest search engine on planet Earth is X, behind Google. So you can go to the little hourglass and type in the words Money Disrupted on X, and you'll find a link to the movie there.
Great. Thank you very much. Folks, it's command and control, God, Trump, the military, the white hats, and we the people. It's happening right now, folks. This is an incredible time to be alive, and I want to thank both of you very much. Come back and visit with us again in the near future as the world changes for the better for the first time in our lives. Really, really, truly stated. So thank you, both of you, very much for being here, and I'll be right back after a couple of announcements with action items for each and every one of you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, John.
The global financial reset you've awaited is unfolding. This isn't a drill. The global financial collapse and restructure is happening right before our eyes. The currency supremacy war is heating up. We are mid-transitioning. We have not yet arrived. What's occurring during this transition? Danger. This is the danger zone on the economic and financial battlefield. What is happening behind the scenes? New tax policies, ending the Fed and the IRS as we know it. New banking system. How about the USD, the currency itself? We may be returning to a gold-backed currency with perhaps other tangible commodities, ultimately en route to a digital currency of sorts into an encrypted QFS. There is a rapidly and fast-approaching closing window of opportunity to be in the right place at the right time to avoid the carnage of this transition, so that one not only survives the transition, but potentially thrives. Time is of the essence. It's time to act. Saving America and protecting your wealth is not a spectator sport. It requires effort and due diligence, then action on your part. Action changes things. It's time.
What an exciting time to be alive. The dawning of the golden age is upon us. Goots, Goots, get out of the system now. Action on your behalf is required. Be on the right side of history. Please visit all 10 free modules at wealthcoachuniversity.com and schedule your private one-on-one Wealth Coach consult with me, John Michael Chambers. I look forward to meeting with you. It's time. I want to thank once again Captain Rob Cunningham and Jon Dowling for their insights, analysis, and expertise on something that affects each and every one of us, and it's all good news. All right. Also, speaking about good news, if you are retired, there's some specific strategies to help secure a guaranteed income you cannot outlive and to be in a place where you can get market index growth with zero downside risk. And there are some exchanges and trade-offs for that. I've launched the series. We just did an introduction of it. It's up on our platforms with Brandon Clark, triadretire.com. We're going to be launching a 6 or 8 part series, breaking this down for you so you understand it. So if you are retired, this is for you. If you are close to retirement, you might want to listen as well. So stay tuned for special broadcast strategies for retirees. All right, next image, please. Action changes things. I think that's a pretty basic statement. So saving America and getting through this transition, since there are hiccups en route to where we're heading, requires action. So again, 10 free modules, video modules at wealthcoachuniversity.com. You'll learn how to get out of the system in the library of videos for free there at wealthcoachuniversity.com. Second action item, if you visit the Library of Truth at jmcbroadcasting.com, there's many categories. I alluded to it earlier in the show, but there's a tab for the economy. You can click on that, and there's a lot of documentaries, a lot of information. Also on wealthcoachuniversity.com, great videos from Bill Still, Money Masters, Money is Debt, all the educational tools you need to understand where things were at so we don't end up in that situation again. Number 3, again, Brandon Clark, triadretire.com. For those in retirement looking for guaranteed income you cannot outlive and safe alternatives to the stock market. For those who are looking to acquire gold and silver, boy, with the forecast that Jon Dowling mentioned, if you've got investable assets, it's time to shuffle the deck around a little bit, wouldn't you say? And those are high numbers, and they're probably going to come true. But even if they're not, the lower expectations are still at 300 to 600 in silver, and 6,500 to 10,000 in gold. Give Bill Armour a call at jmcgenesismetals.com, and he will take care of you. He's my resource to educate you, help you with your IRAs, your 401ks, your rollovers, or your non-qualified accounts. Gold and silver, this is the time. No question about it. It's time. All right. And again, as mentioned in the quick promotional video that was just run, I'm available on a very limited basis as a wealth coach and consultant. I do not sell investments, do not manage money. I can act as a consultant and a coach for you. Visit wealthcoachuniversity.com. There's a mechanism with which you and I can get on a private Zoom and help you through this economic minefield and get so you can survive and thrive through this transition of the reset. So that's pretty much a wrap. Juan 07, again, as a reminder, mark your calendars. Meet Juan 07, May 28th, 8 p.m. Eastern, private Zoom room, 1 hour live to answer your questions. I will act as your host. Visit jmcbroadcasting.com, click on Premium Portal, learn all about how to gain access to this. We've had, we run them monthly. We launched with Will Barney. We had Michael Jaco, we had Derek Johnson, we had Captain Rob Cunningham, and now we have Juan 07. So each month, a different power guest you get up close with for 1 hour and get your questions answered. Join us next week, Patriot Street Fighter Scott McKay, Will Barney, and Bill Armour. This is a power-packed panel. We'll be going over everything that transpires between now and next week and having these gentlemen weigh in on those events. So that's really a wrap. Thank you for putting up with me. I've heavily medicated combating the crop burning season, which thank goodness has come to an end. This will be I learned from this year, I will leave and go to the Southern Islands and the beaches in Thailand when they burn the crops here till the government finally gets a way to resolve that issue. I'm not holding my breath. Anyway, thank you all for being here. Stay safe, everyone. It's a great time to be alive. July 4th is on its way. May God be with you.
The controlled demolition of the current financial system and restructure is happening right before our eyes. The current supremacy war is heating up. New tax policies, ending the Federal Reserve and the IRS as we know it. New banking system. How about the US dollar? Are we returning to a gold-backed currency, ultimately en route to a digital currency, a stable coin into an encrypted QFS? By reading the pages of this book and taking advantage of the opportunities within, you will become informed, empowered, and connected with the confidence to act. Saving America and protecting your wealth are not spectator sports. Will you be on the wrong side of history? It requires effort and due diligence, then action on your part. Action changes things. It's time. As we witness the greatest financial reset in history, prepare for a new era free from the shadow and control of the cabal. The future is bright, and it belongs to us, not the corrupt elite. We are mid-transitioning. We've not yet arrived. What's occurring during this transition? Danger. This is the danger zone on the economic and financial battlefield. There is tremendous opportunity to prosper. Strategies, models, and proposed solutions will be defined within the pages of this book. This is indeed a must-read book which should be shared with others. The Global Financial Reset, Surviving and Thriving the Transition. Pick up your copy today of this 5-star rated book at Amazon.com.